Hi.
Hi, Namaste.
Namaste. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. It's very kind of you to agree for this meeting. For
Sure, my
the,
pleasure.
the viewers, this is Mr. Tim Russo, and he is even called as Kamananda. Yes,
Yes.
he's from America, right now living in Bali, and he has joined in today to share his experiences with us. He has a YouTube channel called the Vama Kali Ashram. I'll post a link to that in the description box below. Please check out his videos, they're really nice. And thank you for accepting my invitation.
Sure, it's a pleasure to meet you.
So, where exactly are you in your spiritual life right now?
Good question. So I'm in intense sadhana in Bali, and I moved here in 2017. Mother Kālī calling me to move here for my sadhana and also build a Kali Ashram and temple. So I came here in 2017, and I've been in Ubud, which is like a spiritual capital of Bali, since then. And I spend most of my time here. And yeah, I'm in Kali Sadhana 24/7. And also she guides me to assist others with their Kali awakening. So the experience I have ongoing experience, I realized early on in my journey with her is transmittable. So I was guided to begin meditating with people and sharing the vibration with them. So I try to let even that strong desire to share and to share the love and the joy and the Shakti be organic and not push that too much either. So I let people find me or I find them organically. I hold public events rarely. Sometimes I have students, sometimes I don't. And but I'm devotee of Kālī full-time.
So, were you initiated into this? How did it start?
Yeah, well, there were a couple of separate tracks. So the first track was spiritual track. So on that track, I had an increasingly dissatisfaction with the material life. I was actually living a amazing material life by all standards. Very vibrant and lots of friends and lots of fun and lots of good work and high-powered job and lots of intellectual excitement and yeah, lots of everything. And at some point, I became dissatisfied with that. I would say that that was the point where the Kundalini was tired looking out and started to look in, but I didn't understand that yet. But it was really like one day to the next, feeling like the very same things that I was doing had no juice to them anymore, no rasa. So I began the inward journey. And first, I'd already been doing physical yoga for some years, but there was no spiritual component to that. It was just physical. Although I read a lot of books on yoga, I was very interested in Indian philosophy and yoga philosophy. It was intellectual and physical, but there was no spiritual or energetic. And I experimented with diet a lot as well, trying to raise my vibration through diet, through fasting, through juicing, through raw foods, through Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, many different things to, yeah, like kind of the thing I could latch on materially to raise my vibration. I knew I wanted to raise my vibration, whatever that meant. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to feel joy. I wanted to feel love. I wanted to feel at ease and not anxious and acquisitive and yeah, free-floating anxiety. So I started experimenting with plant medicines, and that was big in fashion. I guess it still is. I was living in Ibiza at the time, so it's already people are using psychedelics and other substances there a lot. So it wasn't also shamanism and plant medicines were around. and I experimented with many of them many times. And in one ceremony with peyote, something shifted. It was 2012, October, full moon, and I felt myself the most energy I've ever felt in my life. I was like a nuclear reactor. Everyone else was more in the kumbaya phase, you know, singing medicine songs and all this, but I was a nuclear reactor, which was very incredible, but also challenging because I was feeling so apart from the group. So that was a experience that was going to be continuing, because my personality wanting to always fit in, the ego wanting to fit in into an existing system or structure or people, but the Shakti doing something else with me. So I came out of this experience knowing that something had shifted and my life had changed. I continued on with that until I found a guy who was giving Shaktipat, although he wasn't calling it that. He was calling it connection to source. And when I went to the first session, I knew it was real. It was the first time I witnessed so many people in a room having Kundalini experiences. And not all of them pretty, you know, some of them look like epilepsy, but I knew I wanted in, you know, I wasn't scared. I wasn't worried. You know, some people get put off by that. I was like, that looks like a great party. I want to go. And so I started hanging around with this guy, and I went on retreat with him. And in that retreat, I started to feel like a electric charge in my body. And that electric charge, that was in 2014, in January, 2015.
Where exactly did you feel the electric charge?
Everywhere.
Oh, whole body was electrified.
Yeah, whole body was electrified. It still is to this day. So it's just a question of awareness. If I put my awareness there, I feel the electricity. But sometimes someone will touch me and they'll say, wow, you're vibrating, or you're electric. Or if I have a partner, they're like, oh, what's going on there? So I forget, because it's part of my reality, you know, but there's a constant electric charge. Like I describe it as like having your hand in a 100-volt socket all the time.
Yes.
So it doesn't grow or diminish. It's just constant, just a question of my awareness. So my experiences with this man started to become more yogic. So I went on retreat with him sometimes, and I felt that I needed something else he was kind of non-denominational, if you will, but already my vocalizations had started becoming like Jema. So I was like, okay, I had no, real, I mean, I knew what it meant, victory to the mother, but I had no connection to that before at all, zero. So, but I knew, okay, maybe go to something more yogic. And I found another man who was a guru giving Shaktipat. So I went to my first retreat in Sedona, Arizona. And that was 2014 as well. And in the second session, I noticed, I observed my body starting to have automatic movements with my breathing. And my body was being breathed and my body was being ohmed. So that was the first time I was having like body kriyas rather than just vocalization. So if I look back on it, it was my throat chakra that started to manifest first. And now came the more traditional kriyas from, and the sound om. So the sound om started emanating vocally, and it started very low, like a baritone. And by the end of the week, I was in a high note, my voice cracking like a teenager because I couldn't hold the high notes. So basically, I realized the Kundalini took me through all the chakras in 1 week. I would say opened all the chakras in a week, but I think they're always opening and closing and vibrating. It can always grow more. It doesn't like stay open. It's dynamic. So everything opened, but it's not like open, I'm enlightened. No, but I definitely knew like it's rising. The tone is rising. Om is rising. And people were telling me during this retreat, you're oming, my God, it's creating the foundation for my own kriyas and my own experience. My visions, like your oming is integrated. So that was my also first clue that this body or my experience or whatever was manifesting through me wasn't just a personal journey, that it was also something that other people were connecting with beneficially. So that was interesting. There was an Israeli woman during the retreat who was very excited at the end of one session and dragged me to the bathroom and said, look in the mirror. And I looked in the mirror, and there was a Hebrew letter on my third eye visible. And it was the letter Tov. So I don't know Hebrew, and she told me, Tov, God created the world and saw that it was good. So that's Tov, good. So I know later it's an angelic marking. So later I started to have experiences with angels. So even in this first retreat, this angelic vibration started to manifest. And I wouldn't have known but for this Israeli woman. So she knew about all that. And then funny, from your latest video, I had gone to meditate in a cabin in the woods. I was listening to Kālī mantra in my car back and forth to the retreat. And it was all I could listen to all day long, every day for 8 days, but I wasn't like that before. It's all I could listen to. So it was like a Kālī kirtan mantra. And I must have listened to it hundreds of times during that week. And so I was meditating in the cabin in the woods, and someone's walking by and they scream, sorry to interrupt. Must be something to interrupt someone obviously meditating, important, And I said, what? And they said, look up. And there were 3 eagles circling above my head. Like clearly, so much so that this guy had to say something to me. So this was also the beginning of what we could say like supernatural experiences that were manifesting, not just like in the interior world, but also in the exterior world, if you want to look at it that way. So, okay, I was super hooked now. I was like, this is the best thing ever. I wanted more, And so I went on many retreats with this guy and other things. Then some problems started to manifest with his group, let's say. I started to feel like something was not quite right there, and I might have to leave. So during this period, I decided like maybe I should just go to Shakti temples in India, like the Shakti Peeths, and try to mainline the Shakti without the guru, like the guru is a human, I don't know. It's hard for me to discern, especially at that, now I'm much better at my discernment. But he was like a classic narcissist, and malignant narcissist, and a lot like my father. So I really picked a guru who was like my father. Classic, no? And so I knew something was wrong, and I went to Ma Ganga. So I went to the Ganga. I had already an experience there in 2015 where I put my toe in the Ganga for the first time and was crying for an hour and a half, like a lost child returned to the mother after many lifetimes. I was speaking light language and Shakti talk and crying and sweating. And the people I was with, they were like, whoa, what's going on? So I had this, I had no visions about it before or something, but the minute my toe touched the water, like a flood of energy manifested in the body. Again, a super powerful experience. So I decided to fast. Yogis like to fast. I like to fast. And I would meditate at the Ganga every day and dip in the Ganga like the yogis of old. Must be something to it. And visit the temples around Haridwar and Rishikesh. So I went to the Anandamaya mausoleum there, and I started to have conversations telepathically with Anandamaya. And I bought a book at the gift shop. It was very funny because I started she was speaking to me telepathically in my mind. Yeah, her mausoleum, her Mahasamadhi is in Haridwar. So she was speaking to me telepathically, and I was responding verbally, and then someone said shush, and I thought, and there's a sign, no talking, And I thought it was so funny because Anandamaya Ma was so famous in her early years for her wild kriyas. And she was told to shut up many times and locked in the room because of during kirtan. And now I was experiencing something minor, but similar. So I went around the back of the Mahasamadhi and continued with my back to the wall. I bought a book at the gift shop. What was it called? Mother. I can't remember the name of the book, but anyway, it was a book at the gift shop, and had a cabin in the Himalayas, and I was reading this book, and I fell asleep, and then I dreamt all night long of Ananda Mayama. I never had an entire night waking up to go to the toilet, coming back to sleep, still dreaming Ananda Mayama. And in that dream, I was in her traveling party in the 40s. So I could see the picture of me there with her, etc. I don't have my memories of my past lives or anything. That's as close as it comes, that there was some relationship between at least some part of me, or I was seeing something about Ananda Mayama. And so she's one of my astral gurus to this day. I feel in constant communion with her. The other astral gurus have come, and another one I wanted to mention was Baba Muktananda. So early on in 2013, 14, I was in a temple in Tulum in Mexico meditating, and it was a friend's temple with a lot of Indian saints on the walls, Vāmā and there was suddenly a picture of Baba Muktananda, and my eyes dristied to the picture, and I was in a automatic locked dristi with Baba's photograph, and it's a very famous photograph because many people have awakened from the photograph. And I started chanting Baba, 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 nonstop, couldn't stop. And one of the only visions I've had in my life where my eyes open, I had a vision, was a crystal leaving Baba's third eye and entering my third eye. And when it happened, when it hit, I just burst into tears and fell on the ground, overwhelmed by love. So I feel I received his blessings and his energy and his love in this amazing session. And then I was running around to my friends, touching them, and I realized he had given me the power to give Shaktipat. So that's also continuing on this side with Baba. And then anyway, so there I was meditating in the Ganga now, and I wanted to go to the temples. So I went to the Manasa Devi temple, the snake goddess. I thought there would be some good Shakti there, but I wasn't connecting. And I asked the concierge at the hotel where to go, and he said, well, my family's Kālī, goes to this Kālī temple, but you probably wouldn't want to. I said, no, that's where I want to go. So I went there, and it was in a bad neighborhood, like near a slum. And in New York, I'm from New York. If you go near a slum, it's dangerous. But in India, it's not really that way.
It's not.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, what's going on? And everyone was speaking Hindi, like my tuk-tuk driver, no one spoke English. We arrived at the temple. It didn't look like much. And I was unsure I was in the right place. And a Brahmin came out all dressed in white, albino, with white eyes, white hair, white. And he said in English, you're in the right place. So this was so incredible. Like, wow. I said, okay, I know enough to know I'm in the right place. So the priest gave me a tour, and the next day I went back to meditate, and they had a room, a graha, which is like a womb. So in this temple, Ashram, Kali Ashram, on the opposite bank of the Ganga in Haridwar.
What is the name of the ashram?
It was very confusing because I looked it up many times and it seemed to have different names. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, although I've been back, it's not clear to me. So it does exist. So I went into the Graha, and I was meditating there with a friend, a woman, and there was a yoni fireplace. So a fire pit, which I'd never seen before or since. I saw at the Kamakhya temple. So they had a yoni fire, perpetual fire. As long as the temple has been there, that fire has been going. The priests tend to the fire, and they had the Das Mahavidyas, the 10 aspects of Kālī, in the wall of the Graha. And wow, within about 20, 25 minutes, I was like I was struck by lightning. So much power came into my body. My tongue extended out of my mouth. I started roaring. I was sweating. I was chanting. I was speaking Sanskrit. Already some kind of semi-Sanskrit had been manifesting through my throat chakra for some time. I call it Sanskriti because it's kind of Sanskrit, but kind of not. Maybe astral Sanskrit, maybe like the root of Sanskrit. It's hard to say. I call it Shakti talk. So that was going on. And for the next 3-4 hours, Kālī and I were in a fused state of consciousness. So I had no context for this kind of experience at all. And it took me many months to figure out what happened there until a friend from Ibiza said, oh, that's a Kālī awakening. It's like people have that in Indian temples. Like people have Krishna awakenings. You had a Kālī awakening. I was like, oh, thank God. Like I know something happened, but like someone must have experienced, like you Google nothing. Yeah, it's hard to find. And but I knew it was real, and I knew that's what I was looking for. You know, I didn't know by name or by experience, but what was I doing going around to temples and fasting and going in the Ganga every day? I must have been doing that, right? And how the temple found me, and the albino Brahmin and all of it. So when I got back to the hotel that night, I realized that the presence hadn't left. I still felt Kālī's presence in my field, and it's never left. So that was in 2016. So I would say we're in a single fused state since 2016. So Tim is in the foreground, and if I'm meditating, Tim is in the background, and Kālī is in the foreground. But not just Kālī, also the Elohim, which are like angelic collective, we can say, creator angels, and then also many deities and gurus and saints manifest through my body. So I'll feel their presence in the field, but then they embody me, and I can start channeling or blessing or transmitting energy or speaking as them or giving satsang, which is also kind of unique. I never heard of that happening. I'm sure it does, but I can't find it anywhere. Yeah, from one of your videos about the top-down awakening that can manifest, about the deities and the saints and the gurus. So I start to have visions and feelings and bhava. I realized later it's called bhava, which is divine possession, of these gurus and saints and deities. And it's so many, I have them on my altar, but Chinnamista, still with my head on, different forms of Kālī, different forms of Shiva, even Padmasambhava, but mostly it's Hindu and also angelic. So it can be Yahweh, it can be Archangel Michael, it can be Archangel Gabriel, and the Elohim, which is this collective of creator angels. So they're all in the field all the time. And it's just a question of how they manifest. So I have my day-to-day life, and I do what I do. And sometimes they come with communication or guidance, I would say my guides. And at other times, I don't feel their presence. Then I start to get worried. And I do my sadhana harder, and then they come back. And they're always there, and they always tell me, you are the beloved. You are the beloved. You are the beloved. You are the beloved. You are one in the light. There is no one, no thing, nobody. Only the light you are. We are all with you now. We are all one in the light. So, yeah. Om Shakti.
And what can you tell us about your Kālī sadhana? I thought you were into a lot of Kālī sadhana.
Yes.
So can you give some information about this sadhana? Is there any specific methods you adopt so that others can also follow and do it?
Yeah. Well, the best thing I can recommend is the Shaktipat, because you see, like a practice, it's that's not the way she trained me. So she trained me but she gave me Shaktipat in this temple, descent of grace. So I was in the temple meditating, and then I felt her energy descend into my body. So it's literally Shaktipat, descent of Shakti. So that's how she operates through me. So first, I would say, I don't like to use the term initiation because it implies some kind of commitment. And I'm not too great with commitments, and many contemporary people are not turned on by that. So I just, it's just Shaktipat. It's just given freely. There's no commitment to it. It just is what it is. So first there needs to be Shaktipat. Without the Shaktipat, there's no, there's no practice, no nothing. But once that happens, so obviously it's not 100% that someone will receive her grace. But if they make it through my door and I sit with them, there's a high chance they will. So that can manifest as a traditional Kundalini awakening. If their Kundalini is already awake, it might become more active, or they might experience both top down and bottom up. Referring to what your recent video again, I experienced both. So I'd say my dominant is top down, but I had experienced and have experienced and continue to experience bottom up, which is now at about the level of the eyes. So I was in Tiruvannamalai last year, meditating with some guru, and Ramana Maharishi's eyes on the photograph on the wall became animated, and then my eyes, I could feel the Shakti rise to my eyes, and they started independently, like as a kriya, moving around the room, doing a dristi, first on the air conditioner for a couple of days, then on Ramana, and then on the guru. And no blinking, no nothing. So I could feel the Shakti in the eyes, but it hadn't pierced like clearly up into the third eye or into the crown. But I'm experiencing the top down, like very obviously in the crown, the throat, the heart. And so I would say from my experiences, it's more of a challenge to be embodied, fully embodied. So I do spend a lot of time in the physical body, with diet, with fasting, with physical exercise, with walking, with running, with going to the gym, with yoga, trying to open up the body more. And my experience is that, the trauma, the pain, all that is more stored for me in the lower chakras. And that's where the kind of heavy lifting, pun intended, tends to happen, is in the embodiment. It's very easy for me to connect, but fully grounded into the earth, where I feel like I'm 100% aligned. So I feel like the top down is probably at the level of, I'd say just past the heart chakra, and the bottom up is at the eyes. So it's going like that. And so there's no way for me to help someone unless they receive the Shaktipat. Now, once they receive the Shaktipat, it's like, because it's passing through this filter, it has a distinct manifestation of Kālī in the people who come here. So their tongue starts to come out of their mouth. That's another funny thing. So I never understood why Kālī's tongue was out. If you read the literature, there are a lot of speculation as to why. But when my tongue comes out of my mouth as Kālī, my tongue dances in joy. The tip of my tongue is dancing in joy. It happened in the first experience. It happens later. So I feel Kālī's joy. So if someone is receiving Shaktipat through me, and I feel Kālī's joy, and my tongue is out, and I'm feeling I'm Kālī, their tongue might suddenly come out as well, even with their eyes closed. They don't know what's going on. So I know that they've been initiated by the goddess. Once that happens, it's very easy for me to guide them. They may not accept that guidance, but I know exactly what's happening in them because it happened in me and continues to happen. So I give them pointers. So our sadhana is intuitive. So because it's this like more top down, there are no like practices or kriyas that we do, nothing with the willpower. We surrender to the goddess's love, the goddess's grace, the goddess's interfacing with our own intuition. So we learn to discern between our conditioned intuition, which feels heavy and confused, versus inspiration, which feels light and actionable, and to really wait for inspiration and not follow conditioning. So that's the sadhana. And you can apply it to every action you're doing, whether it's food or when to wake up or who to see or where to go or anything. And then you, by trial and error, you realize like what feels dense and contracted and what feels joyous and expansive, not from an egoic point of view, which is the way you were operating before, but from Kālī's point of view. So you might feel her joy at the right choice. So she's training you how to always choose the divine. And the more you choose that divine, the more supernatural experiences happen, the closer you feel to her, etc., the more you become her. And I realized later in my research that there were ancient schools of yoga where bhava was a tool to merge with the goddess, and actually enlightenment, they even say the fast track to enlightenment is merger with the goddess completely. So when I started intuiting that that was what I wanted to do, people told me I was crazy because they said, oh, it's too hot to handle. Kālī's, you'll go crazy, you'll burn up, Kundalini, don't worry about that, just focus on who am I or whatever. And I knew all that advice for me was wrong, that I need to like completely merge with the Shakti. That's what I knew I needed to do. And then some years later, I found some ancient text that said, yes, I have it on my Facebook page, the merger with the goddess. So that's what I share with people. That's what I'm doing myself. And that's the sadhana.
And do you give online guidance on this?
That's another amazing thing. the Shakti pact can be done online. So it's incredible. So you don't have to be with me here personally in Bali, although I am building a small ashram. But I also help people online, yes.
And what are the changes that they need to do in their life when they're following the sadhana, diet-wise or even otherwise?
Well, I can say that the dominant thing is the destruction of all barriers, kind of like an Agori sadhana, although she doesn't having me eat human flesh. But I was a vegetarian, I was a fruitarian, I was a raw foodist back when, and she very clearly guided me to start eating anything. Anything that she guided me to eat, I felt the Shakti. And if I wasn't guided to eat it, I didn't feel the Shakti. And I might feel like heavy or just no rasa, no juice in it. So through the food, she's healing my body. So I did a lot of damage to my body with my high-flying lifestyle. And also I'm 58 years around the sun. So some damage there in my childhood, eating all sorts of terrible stuff and narcissistic trauma, as we discussed. So there's a constant healing going on. And part of that healing is using food at an intuitive level to heal the body. And sometimes the body needs animal products. And I realized, hey, they're sacrificing the goat at the Kālī temple. So what's the big deal, you know? And it really broke down so much conditioning, like even having like an animal product and going to samadhi. One day she sent me out for sake, the Japanese rice wine. And I hadn't had alcohol like in 10 years. But I had a clear message to go get sake. And I know if I have resistance to something, and it's so out there that it's not my ego, because my ego doesn't want alcohol, very clearly. So I realized that that's one of the tell signs of Kālī's guidance. It's against my conditioning. I don't want to do it, but it feels joyous. So I've got to go do it. So I went to the Japanese restaurant and ordered some sake. And I went into a small samadhi immediately after having the sake. So then later, of course, I learned that sake is made in Shinto temples in Japan, the classic sake. It's like made in the temple. It's not like alcohol. It's just like the sacrament, like you would have in the Christian church, the wine. So wine, you see, like alcohol was in my mind. It's fine, like medicinal Chinese rice wine or Ayurvedic wine can be in alcohol, fermented grapes. It's a wonderful carrier for the blood. So basically, she deconstructed and continues to deconstruct whatever my ideas of pure, impure, good, bad, like, dislike, guiding me to partners, guiding me who to work with. You know, I may not like the personality of someone who's come to work with, but I have very clear guidance from the Shakti, and there's a level of deep connection with the Shakti with them. So it's like talking to another ego. It's not a big deal. All the egos are crazy. So I just focus on the Shakti, and that's what I do with my own ego. Like I don't get caught up in its drama and its drama, and I try to just focus on the Shakti. So that's why I recommend everyone do, but also it's what I do externally. So even if someone is rude or whatever, some drama, something, I just constantly try to focus on the expansion and the joy, not from my conditioning, but from the Shakti. And that's what I advise others to do. And that's the main thing of the sadhana is like, when you destroy all that conditioning, what starts to emerge are joy and love and bliss. So without that very real, like, dislike, good, bad, all that stuff, beneath it all, beneath all the conditioning, the trauma, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, are joy, bliss, and love. And then you start to manifest that joy, bliss, and love in your day-to-day life. That's how you know your sadhana is succeeding, because things which might trigger you before without having done like any shadow work. I would say Kālī is the ultimate shadow work, you know, but there's no work. It's just like her working on you all the time and through your experiences as well. She's sending those experiences your way, so healing you. And then the thing which was an obvious trigger for you, all of a sudden, nothing. Feel nothing. In fact, you feel joy. So that starts to happen. That's how you know the sadhana is advancing and progressing, by the strength of the kriyas, the progression of the kriyas. So in the beginning, you know, just gross vocalizations. Later, you're singing like an angel. In the beginning, you might have some like circling or swaying. Later, you're having beautiful dances of the Devi manifesting in your body, and Shiva dancing, Nataraja in your body. So to allow your whole body to surrender it to the deity, and they're using it as a vehicle for dancing and for joy and for sometimes also satsang and shaktipat while dancing. It takes a lot of surrender and letting go, also physically in the body. So that's another thing. It's like the degree of flow in the body to enable to handle the deity's possession and the different deities. So I feel that when the deity possesses you, so sometimes people go into, see in the Indian temple, trance possession. I don't have trance possession. I'm like in a co-consciousness. So there's still Tim that has to relax. And then I feel like more deities, more power, more love, more variety wants to come into the system, and I have to constantly like heal and open the system to receive more. And each time one of those experiences happen, it's like brings up the sadhana to another level. So that's another way to monitor the progress. The repetition of bhava, the beauty of the bhava, the different deities and saints that manifest in the bhava, how often that happens, the kriyas, and also the joy and the love and the bliss.
So when the goddess is active in you, what does Tim do in the background? Is Tim aware that he is present in the background? Are there two aspects in Tim right now, or is the goddess alone controlling Tim? And is Tim forgotten for that moment?
No, Tim is still present. I would say he's the astonished observer, joyous, astonished observer trying to get out of the way. So I'm just trying to get out of the way. What I do is I focus on my energy, but maybe on my mouth. So if there's channeling that's happening, if the goddess is speaking through me, I try to delay, like slightly delay the physicality of the speech to make sure it just comes forth. So the mind wants to jump ahead and complete the goddess's sentences, or I remember something, or the mantra, or whatever. Like we can say even a common mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. I wait for it, like Om Namah Shivaya. So that's my practice, is really like waiting for it. It's to really, be the devotee, the observer, surrender. So that's a large part of because it's such a powerful manifestation and so transformative and so desirable, at least for me. Other people get spooked when their tongue comes out the first time. And it can trigger other people. Here in my home, it doesn't trigger anyone, but I can be in a public place in India, and if I'm standing on one leg and have like a astral flute in my hand and I'm Sri Krishna, people might get triggered because who's this Western guy thinking he's Krishna? Yeah. So you have to let go of all that. You have to let go of what people think, what you think. One of the manifestations that was happening a lot was Vasuki, who's the Naga god and the snake around Shiva's neck. I learned later that people have Naga possession. If you go to some Naga temples, you'll see some people slithering around in the sand. I didn't know about that then. So Vasuki was manifesting in my body, and I was slithering around the floor, and I really felt like one with this snake consciousness. And I knew that if I astrally struck someone, bit them, that it would be a huge blessing for their Kundalini. But Tim was super triggered by Vasuki's appearance, even though it was super powerful, because it's so out there from my perspective. What will people think? What do I think? Is this real? Etc. So you have those thoughts at a conscious and subconscious level, and then at a bodied level, like imagine slithering across the floor, or feeling you want to strike someone, but you're not a snake, yeah. So you really have to allow your body, your mind, your emotions, everything to be taken over by the manifestation, and just in surrender mode. That whatever I think of Kālī as the mistress of ceremony. So whoever Kālī sends as Bhava, it's still Kālī, one time I was having the first Saraswati Baba, and it was so nice and it was so refined, so sattvic, so gentle. And then I felt Kālī's presence also. And I was like, oh, Kālī, can you go away? I'm busy with Saraswati. And then she was Saraswati. So she's like, you idiot, it's still me. So yeah, oh, forgot. So it's like that. Like Kālī is sending the deities, the saints, the angels, everything. It's all Kālī. Good for my mind to keep it organized. And then it's just constantly surrendering to whatever wants to manifest. And yeah, I'm not the doer. So there's an incredible amount of non-doership, of just allowing the body and the field to be the vehicle of the goddess. Yeah.
What are the qualifications one requires to do Kālī sadhana?
The goddess chooses you.
Can be on our own accord if I am interested. Then how do I go about it? What changes should I bring in my life?
I think it's such a tricky one because, like, you know, calling something in, let's say, if you want to use that term, you can also get into a lot of projection. And so that's one of the big pitfalls in the whole spiritual path, is the tendency of the mind to project and create fantasies. So to guard against that, one of the things is really wait for the spontaneity to manifest. So without so much doing. So you can have a call, a persistent call to go do something, like I need to go to India and I need to go meditate at the Ganga, and it's coming again and again and again. And actually, I don't want to go, and I've got to go at this time. Okay, I'll go. So, like, you know, surrendering to those kind of impulses, spiritual impulses, and following them. So I look at it as the goddess will find you. It's not so much, you know, just your interest in the goddess is already a lot. And then having this sincere intention, we could say sankalpa, to be a devotee of the goddess. You know, she hears you, and then it will manifest through synchronicities. It will manifest through your inspirations, or through your dreams, or through the right person showing up that can help you connect to that. So already starting to surrender.
Before your introduction to Kālī or the spiritual path, were you aware at some level, even when you were busy with the physical world, that what lies beneath all the surface is something very deep, something which is love, bliss, joy, and that is covered by something which is, or something is not allowing you to tap into it? Did you ever have this feeling? Because I had it when I was in my teens. I knew there was something deep inside me which was very loving, but at the same time I was aware that there was some kind of a covering that I need to break through to reach to that zone. So did you ever feel that way?
Yes, when I was a child, I was a very joyful child. I was always playing, and I was always running around and going on my bicycle. And I used to smile so much, people would tease me or even bully me because I was smiling all the time. And one person tried to tell me it was a defense mechanism, and I just laughed at him. You know, it was really like joy. And I think later, like in the teenage years, then, you know, all the teenage stuff, and then that joy started to become less. And there was more, the ego was more developed. So that's exactly what I felt. And then I felt like my whole life was I kept on trying to rediscover that joy through different things. Like there was something external that would like promote that joy or that love, whether a girlfriend or an experience or, you know, adventure, a vacation, a new job, success at work, whatever would give me that joy, and or psychedelics or all these things, but they were all fleeting. So I kept on, you know, striving to rediscover that joy and that love. Mostly what I felt is the joy rather than love. Love came later. And that's who I really believe that we are. We are joy and love. And we have this conditioning, like Gulliver's Travels, you know, like we're tied down by all these ropes, so we don't remember that we're joy and we're love. And I felt like my whole life was a quest to be, like, people would tell me like, oh, it's normal it's normal to feel like sad or depressed or angry or all these different things, or confused. You're just human, or that's life, or whatever. And it was never really acceptable to me. Like, also not acceptable, like, oh, you just get old and you die, and pain and the hospital and all these diseases and everything. Like, why? Why does it have to be that way? It never made any sense to me. So I at one level, I never really accepted all that. I was on my own, quest, and I believed it was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I understood internally that our innate state is joy, love, and bliss, and that I was on, a search for it. But of course, there were, how I went about it for many years was probably quite self-destructive, and at all levels. But that was the underlying. It wasn't escape. It wasn't like, no, it was all looking for joy and for love.
And you were speaking about narcissistic abuse, how you went through it, and then how you healed yourself from it. So could you please help others with the advice, the guidance, and how does it work? How does it heal us?
Great question. Well, interestingly, I think you mentioned in one of your videos some time ago about the narcissistic guru and how this is a big danger in the path, because when you're naive and you're starting out your sadhana, you're particularly susceptible to this narcissistic guru because they seem to know it all, and you're in a period where you know nothing. So you're looking, why reinvent the wheel, right? So a lot of people have this thing where I'm my own guru. I never had that because I realized, like, I need help. And there are people who know much more than me. I don't have any problem asking for help and seeking their help. On the other hand, there are lots of people who would exploit that, exploit your love, exploit your time, exploit your naivete, exploit your Shakti, trying to like use your Shakti, your Kundalini for their own benefit, egoic benefit. And to learn who is the narcissist and who is the genuine guru, wow, we could have 2 more videos about that. But I want to give it to a nutshell, my own experience, which is, your parents. So I would say both of my parents were quite narcissistic, but particularly my father. And not that they weren't doing the best that they could, given who they were. Of course they were. And it's not like I blamed them or something like that, but it is what it is. So it's very easy, like I can see from my own situation, that having this unresolved narcissistic trauma with my father, who was intellectual, distant, prone to huge anger outbursts, violent, alcoholic, but also genius, brilliant, respected academic, lots of titles and so forth, teaching at world-renowned universities. So that's exactly the guru who I found, like brilliant, erudite, intellectual, funny, captivating, etc. But then, oh my God, there's a horrible shadow here filled with anger and abuse. So in a way, Kālī helped me heal that trauma, because she brought me to different manifestations of my father, the first guru and the second guru. So the second guru seemed to be the opposite of the first guru. He had very kind eyes. He was Indian, so he was from a long line of Indian gurus, kind of a famous line of Shaktipat gurus. And so therefore, it seemed like, wow, okay, this is the real deal. I was even a Swami in his temple, because I was so all in, and the Shakti was very strong. But at the end of the day, there it was again, someone who had a shadow, who was actually quite angry, had repressed all their stuff. So I was just like, wow. But I'm not blaming them again, although I think that it's really important, if you're going to lead other people, the authenticity. If you're hiding things and you have a shadow and you're not who you say you are, you're really doing a disservice to the people who come to you for help. Why are you pretending to be something you're not? If you're not enlightened, or you still have an ego, or you still have anger, it's fine. Just tell people. It doesn't detract from what you're doing. I think sometimes people get caught up and they have to be all holy or something, or they have to be enlightened to teach. And no, if the goddess calls you into service, the goddess calls you into service. It's fine. But just tell people, hey, I still have an ego. Sometimes it gets angry. Okay, cool. Thanks for the warning. So in a way, it taught my discernment. Now
through everything that I went through in my own psyche and the external, but I'm able to read people's egos so clearly. So that enables me to help people with their sadhana, because if I go to a crowded place like a dance floor here, we like dancing, I can read almost everyone's psyche in the room automatically. And I used to think it's horrible. I just want to dance. I don't want to see all this information. But if they come through the door and they meditate with me, it's very useful, because I can see exactly where their stumbling block is. I can see where they're holding their attention. I can see their word choice. I can feel how they are. I can observe them in different situations where how they're holding back, how their ego, all the contours of their ego. So I can give them advice, obviously, because I can see their ego. I joke that it's as much a meditation on Kālī as it is on the ego. I'm meditating on my own ego. I'm meditating on the other people's ego, and just as much, and learning all its permutations, all its tricks, and how internally and externally. And so it's wonderful, actually. So Kālī is also healing me of my own psyche by seeing how the ego operates in everyone and me, and seeing it's not personal. It's just another thing. Like Kālī is an energy and the ego is an energy, and the ego's like this, and some egos are like that, and some egos are like that, and everyone's got one, and they're all a problem.
Actually, I agree with what you say, because I was just recalling my own life, and suddenly something fell into place. After Kālī arrived into my life, I was also more able to see others' shadow side. Until then, I did not know that people had shadows. And actually, part of a spiritual journey is to understand that we have a shadow side. We are able to look into our shadow. We are able to move through that material, heal ourselves, and come out of it. But then when I was in my growing years, I never knew that people had shadow sides, and that, they project their shadows onto others. This was my experience. And I went around in circles in life because I did not know this simple fact. Very clearly in my relationships with people, or understanding the external world, or understanding myself, I was not aware that there's a shadow side and that needs to be addressed. Kālī came into my life a few years ago. I had some visions with her. And after those visions, I'm more tuned into my own shadow side so that I can clear it out. And I'm able to see through the shadow side of other people. So now when I come into contact with a person and I feel this person has a very big shadow side, I distance myself from that person. I understand that people will have shadow side. Maybe to some extent it is diminished when they spiritually progress. So nowadays I prefer to be in the company of people who have a smaller shadow side. That way there's lesser drama in life. That kind of an discretion helped me to heal very fast. And now I'm more wise at handling people, situations, and relationships. That big insight came in when Kālī came into my life.
Yeah, I really feel that exactly. What I also I can even take that same insight to the nth degree, which is what starts to happen sometimes is there'll be an exorcism. So of course I was never trained as an exorcist. I'm not Catholic, but if the stars are aligned, I can see that someone, well, it's a whole nother topic, but with the prevalence of plant medicine and shamans who may not be completely authentic, and also the Kali Yuga, a lot of people are possessed. I mean, I would say the ego is a possession, but even beyond that, a lot of people are possessed by negative entities. They don't know that they are. It's very common. If you go to places where negative entities might want to go, where there's gluttony, lust, drug use, all these things are going to attract negative entities. And a lot of people have attracted them and are in their fields. So very clearly you can see that. And sometimes when the stars are aligned, that entity will become nervous or make itself known to me when I'm talking or in someone's field. So like a funny incident. I saw someone across the room, but I wasn't going to talk to them because they weren't an acquaintance of mine. I was going to go behind them to register at the desk. So I turned there and started walking, and the woman shouted, "Don't hug me." Now, since we're not even friends and I wouldn't hug her, I thought this was really weird. And also that she was so dramatic about it. But then I realized that's the entity, because the last thing the entity wants is that love. It doesn't want to be, actually the hug, the loving hug is the ultimate exorcist. So the Kālī energy also has this exorcist quality to it. Not only does it show you the shadow, show you your own shadow, exercise your own demons and negativity, it also exercises the others' negativity, and so much so that they can become depossessed from the Kālī energy. So I don't, hang up a sign, exorcism. But again, if it happens organically, my body's in service to that. So I have holy water on my altar that I have from the Ganga, peacock feathers, all sorts of things that I'm guided to use if someone is dealing with an entity possession. So usually if they we've wound up in a meditation together, already they've come through several filters of synchronicity and spontaneity. So I know, it's not like I just see their entity and I'm like, okay, whatever. I know it's there, and I know it's starting to get agitated. And then I'm just waiting for my body, how it will be used to help that person relieve themselves of the entity or entities.
So how do we purify our body and mind before sadhana? Because you're speaking about entities. So these entities could disturb us while we are in our meditation or doing sadhana. So are there any certain types of methods by which we can purify our aura or purify the room which we sit in, our body? What are the methods?
The number one thing to purify is our own mind and our own emotions and our own body. So if you walk into a room that's very dense and has problems, but you're a shining light, you will chase the darkness out of that room. In the kind of ancient sadhana, they would throw like a flower into a room behind the back to clear the room of the entities, or now they smudge or do those things. But those things are only the external, because if you have carrying it around inside you, it's much stronger than something lingering in the room. So the way to really clear yourself out, and it has to be done many times and a continuous practice, is fasting. And fasting, and particularly water fasting. I've done long periods of water fasting. I'm just about to go on one now. It's Gayatri Jayanti, and I'm honoring it by doing a 21-day water fast. I think 21, we'll see what happens. But long fasting really brings so much joy and light and lightness and love to the body. You might have to go through some pain and some suffering as you detox, but it's not just at a physical level. Most of the experiences you read about or on YouTube are talking about fasting from a physical level, but from spiritual traditions, all the major ones all have fasting. Christianity, Catholicism, Sufis, Muslims in general, Hindus, everyone's fasting. Jews, there must be a reason, yeah? So everyone is spiritual fasting. It's the oldest technology. They didn't have other things. What they had was fasting. So I understood that was always made me feel better at all levels. So usually when someone comes to meditate, I take evaluation of their physical and emotional capacity, and then how soon to introduce the idea of fasting, see how they react to it, see if they can do it, see if they're interested in it. But that's really the fast track, is the personal fasting practice.
And any other methods apart from fasting? How about Epsom salts? I've heard that Epsom salts clear the aura.
I've tried. For me, what I use is aloe vera. So aloe vera is something that is traditionally used for cleaning the aura. It's also very beneficial for the health. It's also it permeates into the blood quite quickly. So it's a carrier in Ayurveda. So it has these qualities. Plus, it's sometimes at the outside of homes. That's to protect the aura of the home. So aloe vera is wonderful, and you can drink it. You can put it on your skin. So there was a time, plus if you have a lot of Kundalini heat, it's one of the great things to cool down your body. So both internally and externally, like aloe vera, lime, cucumber juice with lemon. That's good. So I was drinking a lot of aloe vera and putting it all over my body because I was so hot all the time from the Shakti. But it was also, every time I got home from the outside, I would clean my aura with the aloe vera. So it might be different for different people. I don't know, but aloe vera I find is the best thing for that.
And the entities, how do we know that we are in the position of an entity? Are there types of entities? And how do they harm or influence us?
A great question. So I can only speak from my experience. I don't want to talk about what I haven't seen personally. So the entities that I run across are, yeah, we could say demonic, in that they seem like violent or angry or, you know, quite strong, talking in instead of light language, like a demonic language. In my experiences with shamanism, like being in ceremony, I've seen it before, where people have this demonic entity possession. So I just categorize it as that, like a demonic entity. So it's really difficult for the person who's being possessed psychologically to deal with this, because it's so common and people don't know about it. And if you bring up the idea that they might have a possession, it can destabilize them psychologically. So you don't want to like do more harm than good. You know, if I say you're possessed, you could, you know, react very horribly to it. And also the entity itself will react badly to that information, right? So you have to create like a bond with the meditator, with the student, that, hey, I'm here for you and I'll stick it out. So a recent experience, a woman came to me for help. She knew that there was something off. She felt Kālī's presence, but she also felt this other presence. And then we sat to meditate. Within 5 seconds, this other presence came forth, and it was like a howling dog. And I wasn't scared at all, even though she was howling right in front of my face. I was in an angelic bhava. So I was just saying, all is love, all is love, all is love, while this howling demon was in my face. And my partner was manifesting Mother Mary as bhava. So she was just like, I am Mother Mary, and, you know, blessing this woman. And then within about 20 minutes, the woman started dancing like the Devi. So that's just an example of like a very common kind of possession, and then how the exorcism spontaneously manifests to help heal.
So can we use trauma as a stepping stone or as a stairway towards spiritual evolution?
I think we are, because so many people are traumatized. In this day and age, so many people are dealing with trauma. But I have a different take on it than most people. I mean, I have my own trauma, but what I advise people and what I do for myself, I try not to invest too much in the stories of my own past, my memories, my traumas. They're just strengthening the ego. Like, some people think the inner child is like a real thing. You know, they've constructed a complete persona as their inner child and given it a lot of strength. It really exists because of their attention and their narrative. So I want to acknowledge the trauma, but I don't want to invest in it and strengthen it. So I realized I also did psychoanalysis and things like that in early years. And I realized that I was talking about my problems more. I was investing, I was looking for new problems. It was creating more problems than it was solving. So I don't want to do that with trauma. I want to recognize that there is trauma. I don't want to suppress it. And so what I say to everything is, for myself and for the others, is shine the light or shine the love of awareness on whatever it is, your negative thoughts, your memories, your traumas, and by everything is coming up to be healed. So if you're suddenly remembering a trauma, it's surfacing now. If you're in the sadhana, it's surfacing now because it's coming up from the subconscious to be healed. Why now? You know, so, but if you can grip onto it with a story or invest in it or get scared and suppress it, it will only get bigger and demand to be healed. So if you take the position, everything is coming up to be healed, whether it's physical, emotional, entity, whatever. Anything that's coming up is good. And can you be the loving awareness to take the stance? And witness is not enough because there has to be love involved. So loving awareness or loving acceptance. And you don't have to talk to the entity or talk to the bad problems or whatever. That's like an investment. But if you just notice, like, okay, I'm in a loving neutrality about it, and I'm sure this will pass. Then it goes quicker. The trauma heals quicker. So I'm not a big believer in like trauma workshops or shadow. I've seen things where people are screaming, like everyone's reliving their trauma. You actually, in my perspective, you attract negative entities by a bunch of people reliving their trauma. You know, the place is packed with entities, but the organizers and don't know what they're doing. Like they don't have enough, they're well-intentioned, but they don't have enough experience in the kind of like other realms. Maybe their Kundalini isn't awake, etc., to really understand at that level what they're doing. So people think, oh, I released some trauma today because I was howling like a demon for 2 hours with a bunch of other people. Also, I feel better. Yes, you do feel better, but it's not one and done usually. It's usually like, you know, an ongoing process, and that process can lead you down a lot of darkness because you're investing energy into it. So by not investing energy into it and treating it with loving awareness and allowing it to pass through you is how we can heal the trauma.
So, because my personal experience, whenever I had to face my own inner pain, the mantra I used to tell myself is that you're not a victim. The
Yes.
moment I used to tell myself that pain would just go away. So for me, just come to ground myself in that painful situation or without reliving my memory and allowing that material to be, you know, move out of my system without bothering me much. I just made sure that I did not lose my ground by telling myself that I was not a victim. That just one line worked like a mantra. I am safe.
Wonderful.
I am not a victim. That allowed me to allow all this information to pass out. I realized that, you know, a lot of inner aspects which were suppressed or repressed in me, which in the form of pain or some kind of memory, not just pain, even normal memories. Sometimes you have a memory where you had a good time, but that memory keeps on, you know, coming back into your mind, and it unnecessarily takes away your energy. At least I look at it that way. So I keep, whenever any memory surfaces in my mind, I tell myself that I'm becoming this inner storyteller. I don't want to turn into an inner storyteller and relive those moments, even good or bad, happy or painful. I see no purpose in investing my time and energy into all those things.
Wonderful. And that's exactly what Kālī taught me. So Kālī told me, all your cherished memories, all your memories, including your most cherished memories, good or bad, have to go. Because when your mind goes into you know, no mind, into samadhi, into clarity, with no inner dialogue, that everything has been resolved. So all that subconscious stuff, all the memories, everything has got to go. And if everything is coming up to be healed and you have this neutral stance, and I'm not a victim is great because the ego always wants to make itself the victim. You know, even the worst dictators think they're victims, you know, like it's a joke almost. So it's
even Hitler would see himself as a victim.
Yeah, of course, exactly. So the Germans were the victims, you know, it's the same story. So it's so brilliant. So the minute you say I'm not the victim, because that's the big prop of the ego. So, and also the memories. So you could say even your cherished memories, which is the conclusion you came to, they're a hindrance because it's the past. It doesn't matter. And you are not your memories. And also I take the example of like a car accident. So there's a car, I was trained as a lawyer. There's a car accident and the witness testimony of one person is not very valid because everyone, and they have to get the witness statement immediately. 4 days later, not so valid. So they need the witness statement from the police immediately, and they also need as many witnesses as possible, and then the credibility of the witnesses. So you could have one accident and 20 people all saying something different. So your own what you think is your memory is probably highly inaccurate, because you had your perspective and your memory. So how can we invest that that's what happened? You know, have you had the experience where you were sure something happened, and maybe your relative or your friend says, no, it wasn't that way, and they tell you how it was, and you say, oh my God, you're right, I totally misremembered. That happens all the time. So that tells you how faulty your memory is. So if you're going to be investing in those memories or trying to recreate those memories or suppress them, you can see it's just a fool's errand.
What is the advice that you'd like to give people who are on the spiritual path?
Well, I would say my number one advice is, if you really want to supercharge your spirituality, seek authentic Kundalini awakening. That without the Kundalini awakening, the spiritual life is like dry wood, and it needs the fire or whatever you want to call it of the Shakti to take you up into the next thing. Not everyone can handle that, like the householder, many responsibilities, businesses, family. It may not be the lifetime for that. But if you're a sincere seeker and you want to devote yourself your whole lifetime to spirituality, and it's your number one interest, then I would say seek that. And then what you seek within that is by your guidance, by your synchronicities, by your dreams. Don't go for, there are lots of ways that purport to open your Kundalini or raise your Kundalini that are more modern or more new, aren't so tested. Advertised, might even cost a lot of money. So really try to use more intuition and synchronicity. You have it in your heart. This is what I want. And then see what the universe feeds back to you as what steps to take. But of course, we can always take the step of getting more clear, having more synchronicities and more dreams and more information. So we can already begin fasting to start clearing our negative energy, to start getting more intuitive, and to open ourselves up spiritually. So I would say one is the Sankalpa. I want my Kundalini to be awakened, or I want to connect with the goddess, or I want enlightenment, whatever it is. And then fasting to become more clear and open and healed in your system at all levels and more attuned to the guidance. And then the Kundalini itself, if it's meant to happen, will guide you.
Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you, because it is very rare to meet people who have the right kind of information, the right kind of outlook. People generally come with their own baggage when they're on the spiritual path, but to be able to discern the truth from the falsity, even on the spiritual path, is a blessing. And I think you're blessed by Kālī, and that's why you have this discretion. You're able to discern what is right and what is wrong in the spiritual path. More people like you should make more quality videos, so that others who are on the path, or at least who are starting their path, they are starting their path with the right attitude. Instead of getting caught up in a lot of spiritual drama, I understand even at the level where we are progressing and moving up spiritually, even at that level, there is drama at every step. And many gurus, so-called gurus, are keeping people caught up in the drama at that level. So he needs people who have this kind of discretion, so that they don't keep their disciples caught up in drama at one level. Rather, they help them to move to the next level. Let them unravel the drama at every level. And I think
Exactly.
You have the right kind of thinking, the right method, the right understanding of this, because it's rare to
so
find this quality.
I was so inspired when you started making your videos and really seeing how all your information is so authentic, and you were using your personal experience. It was very obvious. And also you weren't bound by like only Hindu information. You were really, if it involved things which weren't traditionally Hindu, you were willing to go there, about the psyche, about the subconscious, about twin flames, about by the way, I'm AB negative about blood. A lot of the things I've looked at also, no surprise, right? So I love how you're very open-minded in terms of where the information is, without prejudice, and really seeing through your own experience and through experience of people how you're able to incorporate that into a greater experience and philosophy to really help people so they can identify. So when I watch your videos, it's one of the few I can really see that it's an authentic, well thought out, well explained, and multi-perspective perspective that's really rare. So I really want to say thank you for the work you're doing and for your expression and your journey. Jai Shakti, Om Kali, Om Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Kali Om, Bhakta, Om Shakti Ma, Hail Mary, full of grace, all is love.